Welcome to Unpacking Politics, where every voice counts and every shift sparks a story. We are your hosts for today. I'm Helen.
Hi, I'm Alex. So, today's episode, we are diving headfirst into a question that sparks arguments, opinions, and also a little bit of chaos.
The question is simple. Can a single vote decide the outcome of an election?
Okay, but don't be fooled. This goes way deeper than yes or no. We are challenging perspective, switching the sides, watching your mind changes in real time.
Here's how it's going to work. Our participants will start by stepping into one of two fixed circles. Proposition, one vote can change everything, or opposition, it cannot.
Okay, so these circles are their anchors for the entire episode. But with every new question, the seats will be changed.
We will hit you with debates on voter behavior, social influence, and whether voting is a right or a duty.
And through it all, you, our listeners, are part of our journeys. So keep track of your own stance and also who you agree with and also who makes you reconsider your choice.
So let's get into it.
And the debate starts now.
Hi, my name is Hong Wei, the age of 21 now, studying psychology and now is studying political science. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tan Hui An and I'm 20 years old now currently pursuing a psychology course.
Hi everyone, my name is Lee Seng Hao and I am 20 years old and I am from psychology course, now year 1 sem 2.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm 20 years old and I'm currently studying psychology at Utah.
Hi everyone, my name is Zalun. I'm 22 years old this year. I'm coming from Ipoh, Perak, currently studying a psychology course. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jiaqing. I'm 20 years old and I'm a Utah psychology student.
We're kicking things off with a big question, the one that will define your place for the rest of this discussion.
Can a single vote decide the outcome of an election?
If you believe it can, step into the proposition circle. If you believe it can't, step into the opposition circle.
And from here on out, these circles are your base and you will return here before every new question.
Once you're in your circle, go ahead and take a seat on your side. And let's hear some thoughts.
So most of the people will think that one vote doesn't matter, but that's not true because they have real life example that a single vote can make differences. So for example, in 1839, Marcus Morton had won Massachusetts governorship by exactly one vote. And in 2008, the Minnesota state legislative race came down to one vote out of more than 20,000.
Okay, I know it sounds unlikely, but a single vote can actually affect an elections, especially in smaller local elections. For example, in 2017, a Virginia House of Delegates race ended in a tie, and the winner was literally chosen by drawing a name out of a bowl. That extra vote would have avoided the random draw altogether.
Yes, I agree with you.
But realistically, one single vote is not going to flip the results of a big national election if you think about it. Most of the time, the margins are in the thousands or even the millions. Like in the 2020 US presidential election, the smallest state-level margin was over 10,000 votes, so one vote wasn't making or breaking it at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Stephanie is saying. So election nowadays actually is a large scale and also that it has the potential of involving millions of voters in the election process. This is because of the nation, the population has been growing, the political awareness and also engagement of the people is also being improved. The voting accessibility also improved as well. So with such a big scale of the voting, actually a single vote really has the power to influence or change the electoral outcome.
Yes, I totally agree with Chelo's point of view.
It is also very important to take note that there are significant differences between small local elections and big national elections. In small elections, of course, there have been cases where elections were decided by just a few votes. But if we're talking about big national elections like in the US or Australia, of course, one vote doesn't do that much.
Even bigger elections get close. The 2000 US presidential election was decided by just 537 votes in Florida.
But that's just a rare case. In 2024, the US presidential election, Trump won the Florida state with a large margin of about 1.4 million of voters over other candidates. Andrew Gellman, a political scientist, has said that in the major election, the odds of one vote being decisive are like 1 in 10 million. So again, a single vote changing the final outcome is super rare.
And even in big national elections, while one vote might not swing the outcome alone, if everyone thinks their vote doesn't matter and skip it, that's add up quickly. It's more about the mindset. When individuals take responsibility, it strengthens democracy as a whole. So one vote might not always seem like a game changer, but it can really be.
Your vote may not be a tiebreaker, but it can add to a collective powerful voice. So if we give up thinking that we didn't matter, then democracy itself will be weakened.
Alright everyone, before we dive into the next question, please return to your original circles. Stay in your yes or no circle from earlier, and then take a seat on the side that fits your answer to this new question.
Here it is. Do people now not vote because they feel their vote is insignificant?
Okay, many people today don't vote, not because they don't care, but because they believe that their vote doesn't matter at all. This belief that one vote will make a difference is the major reason behind low voter turnout.
Yes, I agree with what Hong have said.
Some people think that there are already enough others voting. I found data in the UK in 2019, 29% of the people in the UK said that their vote isn't important. Means that they don't feel like their vote will change the election result.
I don't agree that people don't vote because they feel like their vote is not important enough. I actually believe that a lot of people don't vote because of logistics. A Pew research in 2022 found that about 25% of non-voters said that they were too busy or had a scheduling conflict. So it's not even about feeling like their vote doesn't matter. It's more like life just gets in the way.
I agree with Stephanie's point. It's mostly about facing real barriers, long line, confusing registration, strict ID laws, and polling places that are hard to get to, especially for people who work multiple jobs or juggling family responsibilities.
But just imagine being one person in a country of millions. It is easy to think that, what's the point? My vote won't change anything. And that's what people usually thinks, especially during large elections like presidential or parliamentary votes.
But what if people, especially youngsters, just don't feel connected to any of the candidates? The same Pew study that I mentioned just now showed that about 20% of people who didn't vote said that they didn't like any of the choices. That is not about insignificance, it's just a very severe lack of connections to any of the candidates.
Yeah, I agree with what Stephanie said.
And beyond that, there's political disillusionment. A lot of people feel like the system doesn't represent them or that all the candidates are basically the same. So they check out not because they don't care, but because they don't get the point.
Yes, but I don't think it's always about the illusion with the system. So some people do care about it, but they just feel like their single vote won't make a difference. When there are millions voting, it's easy to think that mine won't change anything, so they don't bother.
Okay, back to your original circles, everyone. The propositional or oppositional from the question 1.
And once you're in place, take a seat based on this next question. Does social impact affect voting behavior more than personal beliefs? For me, social influence is huge. Like, there's a study from Nature in 2012 that found Facebook messages showing friends who voted actually increased voter turnout by about 340,000 votes in the US, and that's just from seeing other people vote alone.
We are social by nature, so our decisions, especially the political ones, are influenced by the people around us, such as family, culture, religion, and even the friends around us, can influence how we see issue and which candidate that we support.
Okay, I get what you mean, but just look at it this way. When people first step into the voting booth, what truly guides them isn't what that other things. It's more to like what they personally believe. Personal belief, like values, opinions, and also life experience, plays a far greater role in shaping how someone votes, more than how social influence ever could. The views on issues like healthcare, education, economy, or climate change are formed over years of personal experience. This deeply helps Belief don't simply disappear just because of peer pressure, social media, or other public opinions.
Discussing these questions, I believe that social impact influence voting behavior more than personal belief. Because every individual usually votes based on their social identities such as race, religions, and so on. Besides, people usually follows their friends or family's voting choice.
So someone may personally believe that voting is important, but if they grow up in a family where no one votes or talk about politics, they might not feel motivated to vote. It's not about being lazy, but it's just not a part of their family culture.
In fact, a 2016 study published in Electoral Studies found that personality traits, which are closely tied to personal belief, indirectly influence voter choice through factors like policy preference and party identifications. The study revealed that traits such as openness to experience increase the likelihood of voting for a particular candidate, while the traits like conscientiousness and emotional stability decreased it.
Still, I personally believe that social interaction will impact one's voting behavior more than their personal belief, especially in the novel situation. So I would like to share about my personal experience because the Malaysia has lowered its voting age from 21 to 18 by passing the only 18 bill. So many of the young people will be voting for their first time in the general election of 2022 GE15. So as one of the young voters myself, actually my voting decision, my voting behavior is influenced by my family members because at that time, right, I know little about the politics. I don't know exactly how the voting system works and also which district I should be voting for my part. So actually, I just listen what my parents suggest, the party that they follow, that they vote for. So I just follow their decision because I believe that following my parents and family member decision will do no wrong.
Yeah, I agree with Zhou Lun. And most of the time, right, people actually vote based on what's normal in their circle. Like if your family or community always votes a specific way, then it's easy to just follow that line instead of thinking deeply about your own beliefs or decisions.
Okay, let's think about someone who has a strong conservative or liberal value. They're not likely to suddenly change side just because their friends or social media circles say something different. They vote based on what they truly believe is right for themselves, their family, and also their country.
Alright, reset time. Everyone return to your original circles.
And now take your seat. And based on this question, is voting a responsibility or not just a right? Okay, so for me, in many democratic societies, actually voting is considered not just a right, but also a civic responsibility, as it contributes to the functioning of the healthy democracy and also the representation of the people. So also, I would like to share an example when in Australia, where voting is compulsory. So for the citizen who fail to vote without a valid reason, they will actually be penalized. So this has been evidence which I found, which stated that voting is actually a responsibility.
I think that's a very good point because when we don't vote, we're basically letting other people speak for us. And in low turnout elections, it's usually older or wealthier people who decide the outcomes. That is why I think it is crucial that everyone treats voting like something they should do and not something they can do.
Yeah, I agree with Stephanie's point.
I would say voting is definitely a right, not just a responsibility. It's something people have fought out throughout history. Think about civil rights movements, women's suffrage, and even revolutions. As a citizen, you have the right to choose to use it or not, but that choice is yours.
Yes, rights are based on freedom, just like freedom of speech or religion. The right to vote means people have the choice to do it or not. Forcing people to vote or calling it a duty turns it into an obligation, which is something you have to do, not something you choose to do by your own will.
Okay, Hongwei, so I would like to respond that voting is actually a powerful way to shape our society, and we should use it as an opportunity to drive for greater change and also improvement. I would like to quote John F. Kennedy once said that, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So since democracy has provided us with such a tool and ability to vote, so we should fulfill our responsibility as an individual to vote for a better future and also vote for the changes we want to see in the future.
Yeah, I agree with Seven.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point also. Plus, we usually always hear about people fighting for their rights to vote in history, including in like sejarah textbooks. So, if these people were to see us skipping elections because we feel lazy or even disconnected, I think they will be very disappointed. So, yeah, I think for me, I believe that it's more of a responsibility and not a right.
To be honest, calling it a right also protects it. Because if we start perceiving it as a responsibility, it becomes a way of punishing or even shaming people who don't vote without asking them why. Telling someone to do their duty is not enough to address their feelings of being ignored or demoralized. It requires ensuring the significance of their voting rights.
We're rounding the corner, folks. Get ready for a topic that hits close to home for many of us. Remember, you're still in your original circles from question 1, so head back there before taking your seat. Once you're in place, let's see where you stand on this one.
And this is a big one because honestly, a lot of young people feel like their voice get drowned out in the noise of the bigger political landscape. Does it really matter though? Are young votes more likely to feel that their votes doesn't matter?
So a lot of young people care deeply about the issues like climate change, mental health, education, and housing, but they don't see the priorities that reflected by major political issues that will create a feeling of being invisible or ignored.
Yeah, I agree with Hui An.
Actually, I don't think young voters are more likely to feel like their vote doesn't matter. Sure, some might feel disconnected or frustrated, but many are actually engaged, especially with issues that impact their future. They are more likely to be involved in the online campaigns or social movement, which shows they believe their voice can make a difference. It's not so much about feeling powerless, but it's about finding a way that have an impact.
But those political campaigns often focus on older voters who are reliably turned out, which just reinforce the idea that the young voices doesn't matter. If young people are voted in full force, they could easily swing elections. So the issue isn't that they don't care, it's they don't feel seen, and that is exactly what need to be changed.
Okay, so actually, the changes has already occurred. As we can see in recent elections in countries like United Kingdom, United States, Malaysia, there's a noticeable increase in terms of the young voters turnout. So this suggests that actually the young voters do believe that their vote is actually matters and meaningful.
I believe that a lot of young voters do feel like their vote doesn't matter, and it's not just because they don't care. It's often because they don't feel represented in the system. They look at the candidates and the politicians and think that none of this speaks to me. And when you grow up hearing that older generations make all the decisions, it's easy to feel powerless.
Yeah, I actually think so too.
And let's be real, change in politics feels slow. In a world where young people are used to instant feedback, voting seems disconnected from real impact. That's why many turn to activism, protests, or online movement instead.
So, study shows that young voters are likely to vote. In the US, elections from 2004 to 2020 have more than 75% of young people aged 18 to 25 years old. So, while some might feel discouraged, many young people understand that even one vote can contribute to a larger movement for change.
To add on to Jia Qing's points, some young voters may initially feel like their votes has little impact, but as they see the direct effect of the elections toward their life, they are more likely to recognize the importance of their votes.
A 2022 Merdeka Center survey found that only 40% of Malay youngs aged between 15 and 25 years old would vote if a general election were held. Then, only 33% of them expressed interest in politics. It is obvious that today's young voters feel discouraged to be involved in elections.
So for the low political and voting interest among the young adults, it doesn't mean that they are hopeless or apathetic towards the election process. In contrast, it actually highlights the need for better education for the youth in terms of their civic responsibility. So only when the youth they find out and understand how the policies affect their future, then only they are more likely to engage in the voting and election.
And this brings us to the end of this conversation, but not the end of the debate.
Now is your turn to speak up. Which side do you relate to the most?
Do you think your vote really makes a difference? Or do you stand with those who believe it doesn't?
Let us know in the comments because your opinion matters just as much as your vote.
This has been Unpacking Politics. Don't forget to like and share, and we will see you in our next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.